Hello, I am Michael Marsh. Welcome to the program dedicated to reestablishing constitutional government, first in Oregon and then in the United States. But in order to have a constitutional government, we need people in office that are willing to uphold the Constitution. They all take that oath, but unfortunately, too many don't actually obey the Constitution or stay within the Constitution. But my guest today, Laura Cole, is someone I think would uphold her oath, and she's a potential candidate for Congress in the Constitution Party of Oregon. So that's why I'm introducing you to her. Laura, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a new Oregonian. I recently moved here from California, and I'm a stay-at-home mom currently. I'm expecting a young one soon. I have a 4-year-old at home already, and kind of getting into politics for the first time here on a new level by running, by putting myself out there. I have a background in psychology. I went to Chapman University and got my master's degree in psychology, so I like people, I like working with people. Most of my education and employment history has been as a counselor, working with people and being in the community.
Well, that's good. You say you're taking it to a new level in the political scene. What have you done in the past politically?
Mostly rallies, anti-war rallies. I've been to a few of them down in downtown Portland. Just kind of gaining information about the different arenas and realizing that I don't fall in the Democrat Party line. I don't fall in the Republican line, and I followed Ron Paul for a long time, and now Rand Paul, and really just support the third party effort in getting new information out there.
Yeah, we supported all of us in the Constitution Party supported Ron Paul.
Sure.
And we're fans of Rand Paul as well. Okay, so why did you choose the Constitution Party?
Well, like I said, just not agreeing with anything that's out there currently. The two-party system is failing, and I looked at the platform and have studied the Constitution platform pretty thoroughly and can identify and stand behind every single, point that there is, which is refreshing. It's simple, and it returns us to what the original Constitution, the freedoms that were initially supposed to be instituted. It gets us back to the point of our government, what it should be.
I agree. That's why I'm also in the Constitution Party. Where do you stand on life? Like, are you pro-life, pro-choice? Quote. I don't know why they use the word choice when you're talking about abortion, but so where do you stand on life?
I would say I'm 100% pro-life. That we need to do more for mothers in times if they're not able to care for their children. Provide organizations or ways for moms to adopt their children out if they're feeling that they're unable to care for them themselves. But I'm definitely pro-life.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah.
There's a there's an initiative to stop taxpayer funding for abortions here in Oregon. I assume you've signed that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so have I.
Yeah.
Okay, where do you stand on the right of the people to defend themselves?
I fully support the Second Amendment. It is very clear in the Constitution that we are able to protect ourselves, protect our families, and the right to bear arms. You know, it's a fundamental right, and period.
Okay, now what about this? Okay, it's good that you believe in the individual's right to protect themselves, which is very important right now. What about state and national defense?
So, you know, if we were to be attacked, I believe that would be a very beneficial time to engage in some sort of war or defense.
Yeah.
Other than that, we need to get our troops home.
Yeah.
You know, we have men and women that are out there that need to be home. There's no reason for them to be overseas. It's costing taxpayers a lot of unnecessary funds that we don't have, and
Plus put people in harm's way.
absolutely.
One of the things is that, okay, the Constitution says Congress shall declare war. The last time Congress declared war was in 1941, but yet we've been pretty much in a constant state of war. What would you do about that? Where would you stand on that?
Ultimately, we need to bring 100% of the troops home. You know, there can be jobs that are created for these incredible men and women in protecting our borders here. There's no need for a perpetual war. You know, it's unnecessary, and we're not under attack here.
Not officially.
Yeah.
Now, what about the state?
So what do you mean by that?
Okay,
Defending?
yeah, defending state. Do you think it's just the state police jobs, state national, or actually federal, but they call it state national guard? Or do you believe that the people have a right to form militias and stuff like this? Is it the people as well as the state, or state alone?
I would say the people as well as the state. I mean, in conjunction with the Second Amendment, and just in us protecting ourselves and our population and our state.
Okay, now one of the hot button issues is going to be immigration. They keep talking about comprehensive immigration reform. Where do you stand on the immigration issue?
So we need to protect our borders. We have illegal immigrants that are here that need to return to their countries. They're receiving benefits, taxpayer benefits, and, you know, provided things that they're not subject to. You know, there's borders in our country for a reason, and they're not being maintained. You know, a country without borders is what?
Doesn't last very long.
Right.
Which is probably the goal of all of the Democrats and about half the Republicans. What about English as a national language?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is our language. It should be first and foremost what we use and translate, and what we adhere to.
Now, currently, Congress, both the House and Representatives, usually starts there and then goes to the Senate. they decide how much they should be paid. Which, how do you feel about that?
I was so surprised actually when I read that in the platform that that they continue to decipher their own, stipend and pension, and it sure benefits them to do so, but it does not benefit the taxpayer or our national debt in continuing to pay these members beyond their duty or an extraordinate amount. There should be a fair, simple, calculated way to designate how much a congressperson makes and what's fair.
How would you, who should make that decision? Should members of Congress make the decision for themselves, or should somebody other than Congress be making
Probably
that decision?
somebody other than Congress. Checks and balances is pretty clear in the Constitution, and that would be something that probably needs to be decided by someone other than the person receiving the payment.
Any recommendations about who that would be?
What do you think?
I would probably recommend that state legislators do it, but definitely, I mean, I wish I had a job that I could decide what my own, what I was going to be paid. Definitely somebody has to be, besides them, because there is a conflict of interest. Okay, what about judges? Now, people think that judges are appointed for life, but that isn't actually what the Constitution says. It says for good behavior. How do you, what stand would you take as a congresswoman on judges, especially if they overstep their constitutional bounds?
There needs to be some checks and balances for our system. So, my husband and I were looking at just the basic principles of the Constitution last night, and we're thinking, who's responsible for these? A lot of these things are not being followed, and a lot of it comes down to the court system. And if the judges are not using their position appropriately, then the whole system is broken. And so one of the ways I think would be to keep tabs on the judges, keep eyes, and reward good behavior, and get rid of the poor.
So those that overstep their constitutional bounds, you'd be in favor of impeaching?
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. We got to remove what's not working.
Yeah.
Fast.
A lot of times they will use the courts to overturn votes of the people in states. Do you believe they have that authority?
No. No, the government is supposed to be for the people, not to go against what we are very clearly stating that we want.
Yeah. Okay, now, the Constitution, Article 6, I believe it is, if I remember correctly, says that the Constitution is supreme. Some people think federal law, all federal law is supreme. Do you believe that the Constitution alone or all federal law should be supreme over it?
I want to say the Constitution reigns supreme.
Okay, and you have read the Constitution? Good. So when you take that oath, you know what you're doing. I think one of the problems I have with a lot of politicians at the federal level, be promising to break the Constitution and in their campaigns, and then they'll take that oath to uphold the Constitution. Yeah, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, what about national sovereignty? Should, like there's been a lot of, especially in this administration, but, prior, George W. and, going back quite a few presidents, they go to the UN for permission to do things. Okay, what would be your position on the United Nations relationship to the United States?
I feel like we need to withdraw from all of these organizations, the United Nations, NAFTA, NATO. The attempts to subordinate our nation to any union we're on the road to tyranny. All these things that are supposed to be making us feel safe and protecting our rights are blatantly going against that, and it's snooping. It's personal information that they're getting into of ours that it's wrong. It can't happen anymore.
Yeah. Now, as a senator, you probably have Congress does have oversight of, talk about snooping. The NSA is keeping track of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Should they be allowed to do that?
No. I mean, who gives them that authority? I didn't sign off that I was okay with them knowing all of my personal information and using it for their will, for or against me. It's intrusive, and it's against our liberty, our freedom.
Yeah. They're building a facility in Utah that's supposed to, I'm not really that computer literate, gigabytes or something like that. And I guess it's enough information for every person in the world for the next million years or something. Should that facility be completed? Should that be operated?
Doesn't sound like it. No. I mean, it sounds like along the lines of the national ID card, or some sort of globalized, mechanism for tracking, and it's not in the Constitution. It's not. It's not what we want.
Okay, now there's a lot of there's some conflict between states and the federal government. For instance, in Nevada, there's a rancher that's having problems with BLM over grazing rights. BLM also tried to take some land in Texas that actually belonged to the ranch, the family. And in Texas, the governor and the attorney general told them that there was, if they did that, they would have a problem with the state of Texas. Nevada hasn't backed either side, as far as I can tell. Where do you stand on the sovereignty of the state?
I mean, the state should have a lot more power than the federal government. The states need to decide and decipher what their constituents are doing.
Okay, now there's I've been railing. In fact, when we met, I asked you a question about whether the federal government should be paying the states to take children. Where do you stand on family rights, parental rights versus state and federal rights. For instance, there's a teenage girl that was taken by the state of Massachusetts when the parents took her to the hospital, and they decided they wanted one treatment, and her family doctor was wanting to treat her for something else, and so the state just took her over and gave her to the state of Massachusetts. Should the federal government be funding this type of behavior?
I don't think so. You know, there needs to be more respect for parental rights, and as a parent, you make a lot of decisions for your kids. They should be respected. If the parent is not engaging in any criminal behavior, then there's no reason for the state to be getting that involved in removing the child.
Okay. Now, where do you stand on a lot of federal money goes to education? Mm-hmm. What would be your position as a U.S. Senator? Would you be in favor of more money to the state for education, or would you less money or no money, or where would you stand on education at the federal level?
I think our education system is pretty broken, and ultimately I just support parents making the call on how they want their children to be educated, if that is in a religious facility, if that's a private school, if that is a home school, that, the federal government should not have a say in, and also penalize those that are not following what they are wanting. That gives way too much power to out of the parents' hands and into the government's hands, into the children's future.
Yeah, and they keep taking more and more. Mm-hmm. Right now they have Common Core that they're pushing. Have you had a chance to study Common Core? Mm-mm. Okay, so we'll talk about that again some other time.
Okay.
What would be your position on public health and safety?
So specifically, what specifically with public health? Let's see. So basically just limited government. The government is not going to be subsidizing or encouraging any promiscuous sexual conduct. Criminal penalties should apply to all of those people that are putting others in risk for a life-threatening disease. I stand behind that platform.
Okay, now the federal government, they every few years they'll make some big deal about, Congress passing and the president signing money for law enforcement, local law enforcement. Would you, if this bill similar to that came before you when you were in Congress, would you vote to give money, federal money, to local communities for police and all that, or would you vote to not give the money?
I probably would vote not to give the money. But it would depend on the states. They decipher what they wish.
Yeah, it should definitely be at the state and local level.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
gets corrupt.
Not only corrupt, but it's becoming militarized. Mm-hmm. Which brings up the issue of like when Mr. Bundy had his problem with the BLM. BLM had, sent out a SWAT team, and I think just about every federal agency has its own SWAT team. Mm-hmm. Should they?
Is that necessary?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. We've got 3 minutes left for this program. Tell us what you want the people to know about your positions.
You know, I'm new at this. This is something that I'm getting into, and I've been kind of engaging in the local community and realizing that a lot of people are unhappy with how things are going and have lost confidence in our government. And just reviewing the Constitution last night, you know, it's very clearly laid out as to how things are supposed to run, you know, simply, honest. I want to restore that, you know. Limited government is the bottom line as far as what I believe in restoring us as individuals, as making decisions for our life and our children's life to the best of our ability. We don't need to live in so much fear anymore.
Now, there is, and it's been going on for 100 years, the conflict of, you know, there are those that want the collective state and want us all to be part of one collective state and only interested in what our higher-ups want us to believe. And then there's the historical American position of the individuals being responsible for themselves. I take it you fall into the latter category?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing this program with me.
Thank
And
you.
we will do another one, talk some more about the platform and maybe a few other things. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.